In the last video, I demonstrated how to use a toString method in order to output the information for individual objects. In this video, we're going to look at a way of comparing objects. And we want to start by ensuring that we understand a very underlying principle here for objects and classes. So to do this, I'm going to declare two new variables. I'm going to declare an int a, and I'm going to set it equal to 4, and I'm going to declare an int b and set it equal to 4. If down here I say system.out.println and I say a equivalent to b, what this does here is this is performing a Boolean operation. It's comparing what is located in A to what is located in B. So we see in A there's 4 and in B is 4. So if I run this, I get true. Makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same type of logic and I'm going to compare robot R1 and see if it's equivalent to robot R2. And if we run this, again we get true, which makes sense because R2 is equivalent to R1. We set R2 equal to R1. And now I'm going to do one last one here, and I'm going to check if R1 is equivalent to R3. Now based on this code, the suspicion might be that, well, they are the same because I create R1 and it has this information, and I create R3 and it has this information. So if I run this now, notice I get true, true, false. This is where that little subtle idea comes into effect. And to show you this, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pause this video and disable the toString method. Okay, so I disabled toString and I've added a couple lines of code here. So if I run this, remembering, since there's no toString method now, if I try and output object R1, it's going to print the memory reference. So the memory reference of R1 is this, and the memory reference of R2 is this. So notice, R1, and since I set R2 equal to R1, they have the same memory reference. Notice the memory reference of R3 is different. So object R3 has the same fields, but is located in a different location. And we can re-emphasize that with our picture. R1 and R2 have the same memory location. R3 has the same field values, but the memory location is different. So when I compare R1 and R3, the computer compares their memory location. So this brings us to, well, how do we compare objects to see if the fields are the same? And to do this, we write what is called an equals class. So I'm going to go into my robot, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to re-enable my toString method because I really like that. And I'm going to pause and just clean up my robot creator for a second. Okay, so now my robot creator has gone back to its basic form. Let's go back into our robot. So I'm going to write a method called equals. So I'm going to say public, and equals is going to return simply true or false, which is a Boolean. And now we want to compare two objects. So remember, with every instance method, we have what's called an implicit object, but we need to pass along a second object to compare. So I'm going to pass along a robot, and I'm going to call it other. So to do this, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to compare each of the fields that are associated with robot. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fields that need to be compared. So we're going to scroll down here, and I can do this using a number of nested if statements, but I can do this very quickly by doing it in one return statement. So I'm going to pause and write that. Okay, so I've written out this really long line of code, and all I do is I put my entire conditional statement next to the return statement. So I return, and then it works through this return statement from left to right. So first it says, this compares the task commands. This compares the current speed of the implicit to the past object. This compares the power level, and this compares the on task. So now what happens if I go to my robot creator, and I say, system.out.println, and I'm going to say r1.equals r3, and I run this, it will give me a true, because what this does is it compares each field associated with the object and is comparing those fields, not the reference location. So in our last video, I'm going to show you how to account for one last consideration, and that is to deal with objects that are null pointers.